thinking about. Hello, this is Angela Lee, and I am here with Blair Kaplan Venables, an amazing woman that I met just last week. So,
Wow.
yeah, I know. It's like old friend, but new friend. So, Blair, you are the founder of the Global Resilience Project. Can you share with us what that means or what it's all about?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me and creating this space.
Aw.
Um, us people in the world of resilience love to, help educate people and share. So the Global Resilience Project is a community and safe space for people to share stories of resilience. And it's a container for big feelings. We do this through published books, our podcast called Radical Resilience, through our merchandise line, through free events, through my motivational speaking, and pretty much whatever platform comes my way that is a great opportunity to help people strengthen their resilience muscle.
Which is beautiful. Do you want to tell us the backstory?
Sure. Content warning. My story is really heavy, so if this triggers you, do what you need to do to take care of your mental health. If you need to step away,
Do
you can come
so.
back and finish watching later. If you need help finding a mental health professional in your community, please reach out. I will help you.
And
So,
don't forget to breathe because
yeah,
your breath can reset your nervous system.
right. Exactly. Breathing. There's all sorts of tools out there.
Yeah.
So I am the daughter. I'm a child of divorce and the daughter of a man who lived with extreme addiction. He, when I was 7, my parents divorced. My dad's addiction became really bad, going from, doing cocaine to injecting drugs to smoking crack. He left our family and sold his business and was in and out of my life. But before then, we were very close. It didn't make any sense to me, and no one really sat down and had a conversation with me about what was going on at kid level. Just all I
Yeah.
knew was that my dad was in my life, and now he was in and out of my life, and not just in and out of my life, but when he would say he would be there, he wouldn't show up to birthday parties, to family time. So my heart was broken, right?
Right.
And it was, I developed, abandonment issues and anxiety, depression, like, trust was broken. So growing up, I carried a lot of that with me. And in my 20s, I did something called the Landmark Forum. And when I was there, I was given the tools I needed that allowed me to forgive my dad.
Mhm.
Till this point, I wanted him to die. I was like,
Which is, yeah. And the thing is, when you're carrying resentment against
Mhm,
someone, you're carrying the burden. They
mhm.
don't have that burden. You are carrying it. And so that resentment is only hurting yourself. So what I say is that forgiveness is a gift you give yourself.
Right. And I don't know where I would have been if I didn't get this opportunity, because I decided to forgive my dad and had a very beautiful conversation with him. We were
Mm.
crying, he was on the phone. I basically decided to accept him for who he was and whatever relationship he can give me. And we developed a very beautiful relationship where we talked almost every day. He started to come visit me. I lived in a different part of Canada, and he got to walk me down the aisle at my wedding. you know it was really cool. Like, I got a second chance. However, at the end of 2018, we learned that he was terminally ill.
Mhm.
He had COPD, and then later we learned he had lung cancer.
Mm.
So I felt like I was being robbed. My the
Right.
rug was being pulled from beneath my feet. Like, I wanted my dad to die my whole life. Finally got him back in my life. We were in a good place, and now he's
And now
dying.
he's
It
dying.
just didn't seem fair.
Right.
And I couldn't, like, I didn't most of the people in my life didn't really know the extent of my family situation. But I started letting those skeletons out of the closet and sharing my story. Like, to process, I like to write to process feelings, but I started just sharing what was going on with a friend over coffee or on the phone. And the feedback I was getting after sharing our story of my dad's addiction, my forgiveness, and our resilience was that our story was changing people's lives. It was helping people make the decision to get a therapist or to fix a relationship with a family member before they died. And just and sharing stories. I would share my story and they would feel so comfortable they would share their story, because we all have stories.
We
And
do.
yeah, and so I said to my dad, like, what if we wrote a book and we gathered stories of resilience from around the world, and we bookend this book with your story and my story, so when you're no longer here, our story can still help people. And so March 2019, the Global Resilience Project was born.
Beautiful. That is so beautiful.
But
And I really,
then, but
yeah.
then,
What? Oh,
because
I know there's more. So go ahead.
well, do you have a question?
I was just going to comment on how beautiful that you got to reestablish a relationship with this man who would let you down, who wasn't there for you when you needed him. And it is that understanding of everybody's dealing with something. And when we can take our own hurt out of our heart and see the person as someone with perhaps good intent, but no follow through. There's all kinds of reasons why people don't show up. And when we can hold them instead of in a "you did this to me" victim role, but instead move into, "Oh my gosh, I know you were struggling."
Yeah, and it's really interesting because as soon as I made that decision to forgive him, I started to learn. I started to learn about who he was, and that he loved me this entire time, and that he lived with addiction and mental illness, and he wasn't well, but that wasn't really who he was. Like, the addiction was this whole different personality. And it was such a gift, because a lot of, like, growing up, it was just more like your dad's an a-hole. I'm sorry. Not like, not like, oh, he's sick, he loves you no matter what. So, to have that in my 20s, like, I'll take it. Better late than never. And it's also really interesting. So we learned this in December 2018, and then January 1st, 2019, I woke up to an apology letter from him.
Wow.
Where he explains that he developed an addiction, and that, like, he would want to see us, but then felt really bad, and then he would numb, and it was a cycle. And it was a very beautiful letter. And yeah, like, very, very powerful for both of us. But, I thought, okay, I'm going to work on this project. I'll get it out in his hands before he dies. I was told he has 1.5 to 2 years, but that's not what happened. From learning when he was going to die to when he actually died was a lot longer than 2 years, which was great. But during that time, we lost my grandfather, my dad's dad. He was like my father. And on the way home from his funeral, my husband and I got in a car accident, and I got a concussion. Writing a book with a concussion is very hard.
I bet.
Yeah. And then a few months later, my husband almost died. He had a heart attack and quadruple bypass surgery, open heart surgery. He's fine now. He's recovered. Then the pandemic.
Because there wasn't enough going on.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic was the easiest part for me.
Yeah.
And then this whole time we struggled with fertility. I was told we probably couldn't get pregnant naturally. About a year after the heart attack, we got pregnant. We found we weren't trying. We got pregnant. It was a miracle. However, we miscarried. And then 3 weeks after the miscarriage, my father-in-law suddenly died after a 3-week battle with cancer. 3 months later, after a 3-week battle with cancer, my mother suddenly died.
And she had a 3-week battle too.
She did. Yeah. She didn't even make it to a biopsy. Like, the biopsy was scheduled for after she died.
Because the medical system, it's a month or two before they'll see you. Yeah.
And then 360 days later, so the same year as my mom dying, my dad died.
Yeah.
The book came out shortly after my dad died, because it was very hard to hold space for other people's stories of resilience while navigating, like, compound loss and trauma and grief. Losing 3 parents and a baby just over a year, and almost losing my husband. It was a lot. But I could have given up, but I chose to keep going. And I know I'm doing important work in this world. And, June 2009, 2022, this came out, the Global Resilience Project, our first book, and it's a beautiful coffee table style book that's set up to inspire people to strengthen their resilience muscle. And we got it out and became a bestseller. Ended up on a billboard in Times Square, got some really cool press, and we're working on our second book right now.
That is so amazing. And, your story had so many touch points of crisis or uncomfortable feelings, we'll say. And, people usually they can either see their circumstances as a rock that weighs me down, and this would be in victim energy. This happened to me and I hate it, and my life's never going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can be something that launches us into a mission. And so you
Right.
took that and launched into a mission. So for people who are resistant to change, what
Mm-hmm.
do you have to say to them?
Change is the only thing that's constant. Like, no matter what,
Stop
it's
change.
going to change. Like, things are going to change. Some of it's going to be good. Some of it's going to be like the same. Like, it's going to be changed, but it's going to feel the same. And some of it's going to be really hard. And you know what? There's going to be a lot of hard, bad change in your life. And I hate to be the Blair of bad news, but someone you love is going to die. Someone you love is going to get really sick. You might even get really sick. Someone's going to get really injured. There's going to be disaster and trauma and tragedy. What are you going to do to bounce forward, to be resilient in those situations? How are you going to prepare yourself? What tools do you have? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
And there's things we can do to strengthen our resilience muscle and rewire our brains. So when life gets hard, we bounce forward, we get through it.
absolutely. And yesterday at the hairdresser's, I pulled a dragon tarot card and it was talking about the recipe for emotional resilience. And it was like 70% forgiveness. And I forget what the other one was, but I was just like, forgiveness is such an important thing. And when I started changing my life, for those, a lot of people watching will know my story basically, but when I started making changes in my life, I used Ho'oponopono to help me reach a point of forgiveness. So, what are your thoughts on that, on forgiveness and tools for forgiveness?
I mean, obviously, walking around with like resentment, anger, hate doesn't feel good. It
No.
actually feels better to do the uncomfortable thing and forgive. And everyone's path to forgiveness is different. Like, I can't tell you how to forgive. I'm not a
Mhm.
forgiveness expert. I'm an expert human who has, done a lot of work in resilience, but it's a lot better. You just like, you carry yourself a lot lighter. Like, I think there's two sides to every story, and like, hurt people hurt people,
Oh boy, isn't that true?
but healed people heal people. And
Yep.
if you can be that person to step up and forgive, and forgiveness can look like anything, like, it can just be forgiving them in your heart, or it can be having a conversation and resuming a relationship, or anything in between. But if you figure out the way you want to forgive and you do it, you're starting to break that intergenerational, cycle of pain and trauma, and you become healing and a healer, right?
I love that. And what I have been saying for years is forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. Because, like I said earlier, when you carry that resentment, you're only hurting yourself. Every time you think about it, you're re injuring yourself. And so when you can set down that burden, however you can, it does bring emotional freedom.
Yeah. I mean, where would I be without forgiveness? This
Yeah,
project wouldn't exist. I wouldn't have had a relationship with my dad. Things would have been a lot harder.
yeah. And I can say I never did get that relationship with my dad, but I needed to come to a place of forgiveness in order for my life to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Well, do you have contact information for anyone who might be interested in being in that Global Resilience Project book, the one that's coming up?
Yeah. Well, if you want to be in the book or buy the book or learn about the project, listen to the podcast, everything you can find at theglobalresilienceproject.com.
Awesome. Any last words you want to share with the crowd?
Yeah, just remember that life is beautiful, but it's also really hard, and you don't have to go through the hard stuff alone. You are not alone, and it is completely okay to not be okay. You don't have to pretend you're happy. Like our community can be that lighthouse in a storm for you, and just know that you are resilient and you will get through it.
Hmm. Thank you so much. I love that. And yeah, the idea that we have to put on a happy face, that mask that we wear in order to fit into society. I'm like, give yourself permission to feel,
Mhm.
because when you repress your feelings, that's what leads to things like substance abuse. That's what leads to things like alcoholism. And, you know, your dad did substance abuse. My dad was an alcoholic. Both cases, they were hurt people.
Mhm.
And their choices of numbing is what led to them hurting other people.
Mhm.
Yeah. And there are other choices. We can make the choice to face our feelings,
It's true.
do the hard work. But you don't have to do it alone.
Right. And it's hard, but you don't have to do it alone. But
Right.
healing's messy, forgiveness is messy, resilience is messy, but so is life.
Yeah,
So do you want
exactly.
like painful mess or like a less pain mess?
Good question. It's all in the choice.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Blair, I thank you so much. This has been a lovely conversation. I resonate so much with what you teach and what you bring to the world, and um, I honor you for your work.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the work that you do and for creating this safe space.
Mm, thank you. Everybody, if you want to learn more about what Blair does, please look her up on Facebook. Please look her up on Instagram, wherever you are, LinkedIn. Um, she's doing a lot of good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.